What is going on? Happy Friday, Fibonacci Friday, I like to call it. That's kind of my FF that I throw out there on Twitter. But to celebrate Fibonacci Friday, I want to show you a couple Fibonacci levels of support levels that I'm watching here in the broad market. When I say broad market, it's the weekly chart. This is a long-term look, uh, and I've kind of shown this chart in various forms. So I wanted to point out a couple things for you today as we kind of spiral into the weekend. So let's go check this chart out. The uh, the things I have on this chart. This is weekly. Bitcoin versus dollar. I'm using the Coinbase chart, but a couple of things I have on here. The dark blue lines here are trend lines. Also, the dotted lines are also trend lines. I'm just showing it in different forms for explanation purposes. Down here, I got the ADX that I like to follow. The black line is the actual ADX. The green is the positive directional index, and the red is the negative directional index. And down below, we got the RSI. I got here as the orange line. And I got the, kind of these support and resistance level lines that I put on here from analysis to show the difference between a bullish zone and a bearish zone on this indicator based on the price movements. The vertical lines are just areas on the chart where I think were significant areas of trend change. And we're going to keep an kind of look at those here in a second. So let's just kind of run through this chart from the back, and we'll go up to where we are in the future, or up to the point where we are in the present, and look into the future. Um, Trend line break. You got this blue bearish trend line. We were in a bearish zone down here. At this point, it broke to the upside, got some momentum on the ADX, kind of moved up, into this bullish zone. We didn't really know it was a strong bullish zone until we got some holds in here, and broke above, this previous high and kind of pushed it forward and kept that momentum going for the bulls. One of the things that I use and many technicians probably use as a minimum target is if you take the furthest distance below a trend line and take that rate of change to the up, in this case to the upside. I took this distance here and this distance here. This was the objective. So if you were trading this and you bought on this break, you would kind of want to wait for this area here to be your sell point. So this level ended up becoming a pretty good resistance level that had a little bit of a support and resistance flip right here. As you can see, the bulls were still in control. We're in the bullish, where we are actually holding here, trading in the bullish zones, and then we kind of went parabolic. A couple of things you got in at this point right here in the market where the directional indexes were trying to change direction, but the bulls held control just a little bit here, held support on the bullish zone, and also was testing a 61.8% level. So if you're along this market and it was coming down here to test this, a break of this level probably would have been an area to sell. Another thing to keep in mind is this 55 exponential moving average that's on the weekly here, a pretty significant line to watch. So that's one we're going to keep an eye on also. So we kind of held in here, bounced higher, and then we got into this point right here where you had a 61.8% level right at this point, broke to the downside. Right here we had a break of the or at least a tie up of the directional movement averages here. ADX was dropping a little bit, but then this is the point that was pretty significant, is we broke into the bearish zone for the chart. And price came back up here, tested the 61.8% as resistance, but as you can see, there wasn't enough buying interest to keep this thing going. So this was definitely a sell area and working its way to the downside. And we stayed in the bearish zone. So another significant one is when we popped back up into the bullish zone, and then we got momentum behind it, and that's what we've been on since. Same thing we did back here with the trend line. You take the furthest distance underneath the line since we broke this trend line here, and I love this intersection here of all these trend lines as a pretty significant major change in the market. And that's where we started to get our little parabolic run that we're on right now. But if you take this distance under the trend line and you take this and take the rate of change, it's actually just above the previous high of 19,000. So as long as we are holding this trend line here, I really like this 19,000. But one of the things I wanted to show was a couple of Fibonacci levels that I'm looking at for support. Let me blow this up just a little bit, and I'm going to put them in here. Uh, the first thing I was looking at was just this latest one that we're on right now. And until we make another weekly high, the 98.87 area is what I was really liking as an area to buy, which is relatively close to this trend line also. And I had my orders in around 9,900. We got down a little bit lower than that, and I got filled, which is really nice. But this is a level that I'm watching, this 98.87, which also, if you just kind of move this out a little bit so you can see the trend line, keep an eye on this trend line. This is going to be pretty important as we go forward. So we're kind of in this area right here of possibly getting back up to the previous high if this support holds in the market. So that's one of the key areas I'm looking for is 98.87. If the 61.8% level breaks, and of course we might get a different 61.8% level if we move up a little bit higher, but we might have to take it from this point depending on how high we go, but we'll look at those later. If the trend line breaks, this is where some of these other support levels will come into play. We got this trend line going off into the future here from way back when. That ever since we broke here, we've been in this bullish run, been in the bullish zone. We did break down here in this major correction in the bears, but now we're back into this bullish zone. So I like this trend line going off into the future if it breaks. Now here's the level I'm looking at if it breaks. Then we're going to look at this whole move to the upside here. So now the 7,287 level would kind of come into play. And I'm doing this rough, but you're just to get a feel for where it's going to be around 7,300. It would be the area if this trend line breaks that I would look for on this move. Because a couple of things, you got the trend line here on this intersection, or if it just comes down to this point, if it breaks down even further, you could say this trend line here, but we got this 55 exponential moving average that's going to continue to move, inch higher. So that's why if this trend line breaks, I do like the 7,300 area. It would also be an area on the chart that would probably fill that gap that everybody's looking at on the futures market around 8,500. But as of now, I don't see that in the broad market. I'm really looking at the 9,800 to hold and this trend line to hold because, for one, the momentum is still with the bulls, and yes, we can correct back a little bit, but we're still in this bullish zone until we get another significant move like we saw here. Where we're getting a lot of selling interest in pushing this thing down. That's where I'm going to say, okay, we're going to move from bullish to bearish. Now, can this RSI drop all the way to the support line? Yes, and if it does, most likely we're going to be testing that 7,200 level, and that's where I'm going to be backing the truck up. Because if this holds and the indicators that I follow, and there's a couple other proprietary things that I look behind the scenes, but if you just look at the ADX and the RSI, you can get a pretty good signal if this is going to hold or not. But right now it's looking relatively strong. I like the move to the upside from here. I think we can keep moving. Watch that 9,800 level, and then also the 7,300 level if that breaks. Those are the two main Fibonacci levels that I'm watching for some support. Give me your thoughts and opinions on any levels that you guys are looking at out there for any other types of patterns. That would be great. I'm out on Twitter at FiboSwanny. Feel free to reach out to me and let me know what you think. Let me know what you're kind of looking at. See if it matches up so we can kind of join forces and beat this thing. All right. Happy trading. Peace out.